Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Post in Black, where we celebrate Black excellence behind the lens. My name is David Hunter Jr., and I'm excited to be your host today. Today, we are thrilled to have with us Bobbi Banks, Supervising Sound, Dialogue, and ADR Editor. Bobbi, thank you so much for joining us today.
Good morning. How are you?
Oh, good morning. Good morning. How are you doing? I'm doing great. We're excited to have you joining us on Post in Black. And as accustomed to Post in Black, before we start, we always like to start with a icebreaker. Are you okay with that?
Sure.
All right. The icebreaker I have for you is, if your life was a movie, what genre would it be and who would play you?
Oh, what genre? Oh my gosh. I want to say it could be a thriller.
Hey.
There's been a lot of bumps and and challenges along the way. Um, who would play me? That's a whole nother boy, you got me on that one.
Uh,
I
there's a
don't
lot of choices. Yeah, it's a lot of choices. I know I threw it out there.
Wanda Sykes.
Why Wanda Sykes?
Because she has a lot of comedic uh responses, I think. I think
Oh,
that
I
would work.
love it. I love it. There's two reasons I love it for Wanda Sykes. She went to Hampton University,
Ah,
a DC woman, and also she actually is on a great show, which I think is hilarious. The Upshaws
yeah,
on Netflix. So I really
yeah,
think it's funny. So that's a great choice. I
yeah.
want to see this movie. I want to see this movie now. Starring the Bobby Banks story.
Between a
Yeah.
thriller and a comedy, I think it would probably work.
Right, right. Well, no, that's a good little insight into you and your life. But obviously, we want to find out a little bit more. We're going to dive into the career and the technical side of everything that you've done. But would you mind just telling us a little bit about yourself? Where you're from, where you grew up, and what it is that you do.
I'm from Los Angeles. I grew up in the
Mhm.
Southwest. I went to New York when I was 17 and was there for about 15 years and started my film career there before moving back to LA in '86. And so I'm a supervising sound dialogue ADR editor. And for supervising sound, it's like, I oversee all the sound of a film
Yeah,
post. So it's after everything has been recorded. And so I oversee the dialogue and the effects, Foley, not the music because there's a separate music editor. Um, and then we go to the mix, and then it's a collaboration with the re-recording mixers, so we're the last people to work on a film before it comes out. As far as ADR, that's automatic dialogue replacement, where the actors have to come and do their lines over again, or we have group people in to pretend like they're the people that, say, maybe in the background of a cafe or a concert or whatever like that. And they pretend like they're the people in the film. And so I go through the film with the director, picture editor, and we decide like what lines have to be redone or if there's lines that they want to add and things like that. So that's kind of and then what I do is I write everything down. Then I go on the stage with the actors and work with them to try to get the best performance from them. Then
yeah,
after that, then we edit it to the picture. Then we go to the mix stage. So that's kind of
yeah.
it. So,
Yeah, no, we're gonna dive into that. One thing my ears perk up about is I do a lot of voiceovers, and
uh,
ADR is a world that you want to get into, but it's like a secret society. You're like, hey, where's the door to get over there? And it's like you're either in or you're over here. You know about it, so that's a fun thing that you get to work on, and then you're the last one to work on the film, so you get to kind of mold it and put the final touches on it. That's got to be a lot of fun.
yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's rewarding, I would say,
Mm,
because you get the film in one way, and then by the time we work on it and add all the sound and everything and the music, and then it has a whole nother flavor to it, you know.
yeah, yeah.
So it's pretty rewarding, I think.
how do you get started with that? You know, you're born in Los Angeles, you're moving around, you go to school in New York, you're back. What was it like? What made you actually want to get into entertainment?
It was totally a fluke.
Uh,
I got a job at Sound One, and I was executive assistant to the owners and assistant bookkeeper. And so I actually did not, and it was at a studio where they had a recording studio on the second floor. They rented editorial space for film, and they had a Foley stage and a mixed stage up on the eighth floor where the offices were. So I had no clue about anything. And so I would go sometimes on lunch and go to different departments to see exactly what they did. And I wound up going into the sound effects library. I met a lady named Roberta at the time. And so she had headphones on. I was like, oh, let me just see. And so she would just play. There was quarter-inch tape at that time because it was in the 80s. And so and I was like, oh my gosh, these are like effects. And so I would go and then I would go in on my own. And then I had a splicer. And I said, man, there's like this noise here. Let me see if I can get that out. So I didn't ask anybody if I could do it. I just did it. And so it turns out that I was actually cleaning up the sound effects library and didn't even know. So I was like, oh my gosh, I want to do this because I like challenges. And at
mhm.
the time, they said, okay, well, if you want to do that, we're going to cut your salary. And so I was a single mom at the time. And so we're going to cut your salary like $50. I'm like, okay. So they didn't think that I would say okay. So I did that and I went to choose effects for clients. Then I went back to administration. Then the machine room is where they have the mix stage. So I wanted to mix, but at the time they're like, it's going to take like 5 to 7 years for you to do this. And when you're young, it's like, this is way too long. Right?
Mhm.
So I'm not gonna go, well, we will let you try for a mixed tech. So since I had no training, I didn't go to school, I had 6 weeks to learn like patch bays and like technical stuff and how to thread a projector. And I had my little notebook and I wrote pictures and I did all this stuff. And after 6 weeks, I learned how to do it and I ran my first mix with the mixer. And
Wow.
so I realized at that time, like I was technically inclined. So
Okay.
then I was like, oh, maybe I want to try to do editing now. So then what I did was I quit after a year because I got bored because you're just sitting there waiting for a machine to stop or something. And so then I handed out my resume and it took me like 3 months to get a apprentice job. And I worked on Desperately Seeking Susan, which was Madonna's first film. And that was my introduction to sound editing. And it was 6 weeks. We worked like 80 to 100 hours a week. So that was like my introduction to sound. And then I just had really good, good teachers and stuff. And then I kind of gravitated more towards ADR.
Okay.
And I had a really good, Beth Bergeron was my teacher here when I got back to LA. And there I would just watch how she handled, the director and the actors and what she heard and things like
Mhm.
that. And so again, I like challenges and, I
Yeah.
study people a lot. And so then, I just been doing ADR for a really long time. So
Wow. That's incredible. I'm going to touch on a couple of things there, but I already have the title of your film with Wanda Sykes. It's called 6 weeks and three and three and what 180 hours. You know what I mean? You got 6 weeks, 180 hours with Wanda Sykes, and that's the Bobby Banks story, how you made it right in the this is really impactful. One of the things I think that jumps out, and I could go a few different directions, but what's the biggest skill set that you think was an asset to you to really working in the industry? Because being so young and getting the opportunity to work and then believing in you and then you actually doing the job, what do you feel like was already in you that helped you with the job and get it so easily or so quickly?
I think just the drive and
Mm,
not afraid, like if anybody said, no, we don't have a job or not right, we're not hiring right now. It's like I
yeah.
just push forward,
Mhm.
and because in New York, starting off in New York was different because you walk everywhere, you take the train everywhere, right? So you have that, you already have that kind of go in you already. And so I was able at that time, I would just like call people or go to the cutting room and ask if
Okay.
if they had any openings, right? So that kind of set me up for when I came to LA because LA is different. Everybody's in a car, right? And at the time, there was like no posting where things were. So you just had to really go and meet people, and that
Mhm.
kind of thing. So I would say that if somebody said no, there's another door open somewhere, right?
Mm.
I just don't give up. And like I said, I just like challenges. And also, I'm like a people person.
Okay.
So I think that, another thing too is just studying people, right?
Mhm.
And trying to, you just kind of, you have to kind of know what kind of day they're having, like really quickly, and
Mhm.
how kind of to respond to people. And so I think that's another skill that you have to have.
Yeah. I think that's really, really great points that you made. And a lot of times we talk about with Post and Black is being inspired and having that perseverance, and then it also being relationship based industry.
Yeah.
Sometimes too, you're inspired by people who look like you. Like, growing up, I would see, you know, Denzel in a movie and I say, man, I want to do that. I like the way I feel when I go to a theater and come out when he's in a story.
Mhm.
When you're starting out, was there anybody that you could look to and say, "Oh, she's doing that. Oh, I like that." Or maybe there's a slot in there for me.
Uh-huh.
Was
Um,
there anything like that for you?
Actually, no. There
Yeah.
was very few. There was only, I think at the time, Kevin Lee
Mhm.
was African American sound editor, supervising sound editor, as far as persons of color. Bruni
Mhm.
Torres was another one. And those were the only, people and myself.
Yeah.
And so if I'm looking for somebody that looked like me, I think that it would just be those two people. I think
Yeah.
that the community at the time was a big help, very supportive, especially when I started off as an apprentice. Everybody, just having fun. It was a lot of teamwork. And so you
Mhm.
really kind of didn't, it wasn't like me looking for somebody that looked like me. It was just doing the best job that I could do, and
Yeah.
so I think it was just a little bit different for that. Um,
I understand. Yeah. Though I guess one thing that in jumping forward even to now, what is the biggest change? And I know I'm jumping over a lot of things we'll touch on, but what's the biggest change that you feel like you've learned from just starting out as an apprentice to now with all the films you've worked on? Even some I saw some in the credits like Poetic Justice, which, Tupac, I just went to the Tupac exhibit down here in LA, the Wake Me When I'm Free. And so just seeing that picture of that with the film with Janet, what have you learned in that time frame that you feel like it's like, oh, I'm still doing this. This is still translating from that first time in those first 6 weeks to now years later.
hmm. I think that teamwork is a
Mhm.
big thing. It's not about for me. It's not about competition with somebody else. It's
Mhm.
about helping the story, helping the story maker, helping the director, the team that you have. Communication is like a big key. I think
Yeah.
that over the years, just like I said, working with people and learning people very quickly, learning how to respond in like some difficult circumstances that you might find yourself in, where you might have somebody that's yelling, somebody who yells at you, or, just some weird kind of situations. And to
Mhm.
really try not to take things so personal. A lot of
Mhm.
times it's not personal. It's whatever they're going through that day or that moment, and trying to then take that and turn it around for the best outcome that you can have.
I see. And in that regard, what are some of the challenges that you feel like are still in the industry? Because I'm sure over the years you mentioned there's nobody that really looks like you when you're starting out. Has
Mm,
that even changed? Are there still, doors that still need to be broken down, opportunities? What are some of the challenges that you still see in your field that maybe you're working to still, rectify? So somebody coming from behind doesn't have to go through those same barriers.
Yeah, it's still prevalent. I think for sound is one of the areas that still has to change a lot. Um,
Okay.
I think I could count on maybe two hands for sound between here and New York still. I think there's more persons of color in television than there is film. Why that
Mm,
is, I'm not quite sure. I think that there definitely has to be more barriers broken for women. It's a lot better than it was for women from the 80s to now. It's just a male dominant field, which I'm not quite understanding why that is. But certainly, a lot of times now, lately, what we're doing is we have panels that we're involved in. And so we go to underserved areas, we go to different schools, because what happens is a lot of times the youth don't even know what a sound editor is. They don't know what a music editor is. They don't know what a Foley person is. They don't know what we do because that's not ever been presented to them. So I think right now, I think with the time that we've spent in the industry already, the thing that we want to do now is help the next generation up. So, I'm heavily involved with doing panels and stuff, and I'm on several committees at the academy and the TV academy. So that, that's one of the things that I'm really focused in at the moment. So
yeah. That's actually, and again, people listening and watching, they've heard this repeated from me multiple times. But with my brother, that's part of the mission, providing exposure. When he was starting out, being 22 years old, he was like, "Man, I'm the only one in this room who's black." And I'm like, "Where are the black people?" And so, literally, just cold emails, cold calls, and next thing you know, he has mentors that are getting him onto sound stages at Warner Brothers and sound stages at Sony. And we used to actually keep all the passes when he got to go on the lot, because it was a big thing for us. It's
yeah,
like, man, I got to go to Warner Brothers a day. But you're talked about in terms of it's never being presented. You don't know about a job if it's not shown to you. A lot of times in entertainment, we see the actor, we're starting to see more, oh, the director. Okay, cool. And then a producer, but I don't even think really a producer's role has been defined. People are like, a producer is just a nice title, but they don't actually know what all entails. So
exactly.
going to break down those barriers in the schools, I think is really, really a big key, big key. Now talk about where you are right now. This career has kind of translated from all the startup, all the work. What gets you joy to work and do the work you're doing today? You know what I mean? Obviously, it's gotta be something to still keep you excited after all these years to want to continue to do the work. What is that thing that keeps you going?
I just like to help the director with their project, right?
Mm,
Like just giving them the best that I can give them, right? And what I like is I'll just say Straight Outta Compton, just for
yeah,
so Straight Outta Compton, you have the big concert scene.
right.
And then the things are fired, everybody runs, the guys go through the parking structure, they go outside, there's like a riot going on, right? So the thing one of the things that motivates me is I want the audience when they see it to feel like they're in that space.
Mm,
So whatever I can do, how we record the group with the chants and the screams and the way that you edit it,
yeah,
I want them to feel like, they're having a party. I want them to feel that when they go outside and they have the riot, like they have the people yelling on top, yelling at the cops down that are then, handcuffing everybody, and you just want to feel that you're there. So it's like, look what I can do. You know what I mean? It's like, how can I help escalate this so that
mm,
the audience has that experience?
yeah,
Or if I'll just say like A League of Their Own, because that's one of my little favorite areas. And A League of Their Own, the no crying in baseball scene where Tom Hanks comes up, so you crying? She goes, no. Right. So the thing is, I wasn't the ADR supervisor, so I didn't shoot it, but I cut it. And so
Mm,
the thing about the crying is like you have to get every like her movement with her mouth, the little quivering and her breaths and all this. And so it's like so intricate, right? So those are things that it just motivates me, right? Like I do this? How can I add this breath? This doesn't work. That works. And so the outcome of it all is what still motivates me.
I love that, and I no, I felt the excitement, and then the way you were explaining it, it kind of put me right in the seat of Straight Outta Compton. I remember seeing that in the theater, and it's such a big thing, and I loved it. And so being able to create that atmosphere, that's storytelling, that's filmmaking, that's what it's all about. Would you say, I know I said I may talk about this a little later, but would you say that's been like one of your most memorable cuts or pieces, or was there something more memorable that you worked on?
I think every project is memorable to me because every project
Okay.
is different. But I
Mhm.
will say that Poetic Justice was my first ADR supervision job. And John hired me for ADR supervisor, and Greg Hedgepath, who we team up. He's African American as well, and so we've done like 45 projects together. But it was the first one. So the thing is, there's a scene where Tupac and Janet are sitting on the side of the hill, and there's the water and the wind and everything. And because of all that noise, we had to re-record every single line in that conversation. And so I was like so nervous. And so by the time, because the thing is, you have to get the emotion from the actors.
Mhm.
You have to be able to have them feel comfortable with you that you're going to actually cut what is going to be their best performance, right?
Mhm.
And you got to get the sync right, you got all this right. And so by the time we did the recording, edited it, mixed it, I don't think that you could tell that it was redone. And so that was my first like, "Oh, I could do this." Right. So I think that that would be my first memorable moment because it was my very first one and it actually worked out really well.
Oh my good. That is amazing, and I love hearing stories like that, and then to have your first project be on such an iconic film.
Yeah.
What I mean, I'll ask you, what was there any were there any nerves? Was it like, "Can I do this?" You felt it at the gym, but, like, what was it like when you got the call to say, "Oh, this is gonna be the gig to work on that?"
We had the interview with John and Bruce Cannon, his picture editor, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, we got the job." Right? And then when you're on the stage, because I had been on the stage with the person who mentored me, right? But now I'm the one going to be on the stage with them. And I was like, "Oh my gosh." You can't be like a stargazer. You have to
Mhm.
realize that they are people just like we are.
Right.
And so you just have to get that comfortability with them, and so it was pretty cool, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to people who are coming up in the industry, especially in your field as well, who are still kind of waiting to get that first job, that exciting job to start that career
Mm,
or trying to get into it? Because this industry it's not easy. It's a lot of patience, a lot of perseverance, like you were saying earlier,
right.
and there's a lot of work that goes into it. And sometimes people can feel like they're going up against a wall. Is there anything that you can say to encourage or give them to try to keep going in the midst of everything?
Again, the perseverance. I think that also if you meet somebody or if you have a mentor
Mhm,
that can just encourage you along the way and give you advice, and don't be afraid to ask questions, right? Because the more questions you ask, then people really realize that you're serious about what you're trying to do and pursue. Um, Keep calling people if
mhm,
you know if they don't respond or calling or emailing. If they don't respond after a while, then just move on to go to something else, but just don't give up. Um,
Mhm.
a lot of times when I'm on panels and things like that, I give out my email address and things like that because I want people to know that they can reach out to me, right? That even though I might be on a project, I'm still not too busy to answer a question or to give encouragement. And I think that that's one thing that, we really need to do more of to help,
Mm.
people, the next generation coming up.
Yeah. If and speaking of that, now I give two more things here. What would you like to see happen in the industry in terms of, obviously you talked about increasing awareness for, younger people in college, high school. What would you like to see increase in the industry in terms of more black people, more women in the future in the coming years?
Like I said, with letting people know what jobs are out there, that
Okay.
the important jobs are not just to be, I shouldn't say just, not only to be an actor, not only to be a director, not only to be somebody that you just see in the front, but there's all these parts in the background. And it's okay that that you're not seen. You know what I mean? It's like there's so many people, there are animators. Do you know what I mean? That artists that are storyboard artists, right? And so people don't know that there's a storyboard artist. You've got somebody like say in Alabama, a guy who's a good artist. I was like, oh my gosh, he could be an animator. He could create a character for a game or something, do you know? And so
Yeah.
it's just like you just introducing these jobs to these it
Yeah.
just gets me because I know that there's so much talent out there that they don't even know what they could do with in their life.
Yeah.
So I would like to see more panels. I'd like to see kids being able to go to studios to see what people do. I'd like to see more of us that have been in the industry for a while to mentor these kids and to really be serious about it, and not to be. We just need to care more about the next generation.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
um, and
No, I
And I'm sorry,
oh, go
and
ahead.
to really understand that those jobs behind the scenes are just as important as the ones in front. And I think that I'm a thing about like the BET Awards, the NAAC Image Awards, that if you're talking about an image, you need to also highlight the people behind the scenes, not just the people in front. And I think that that's part of the challenge. So,
Ooh. That would be awesome at the BET Awards and NAACP Awards to see our professionals behind the scenes highlighted, even the ones that work to put those shows together.
yeah.
You know what I mean? That cut and edit and do all those things. So that I think that's a really strong point there. There's so much we could talk about, but I guess to get you out of here on this, what is something that you're working on that we could be excited about to stay up to date? What is it that you're doing now? If anybody can keep in touch with you, like you said, your email, social media, you're on that.
Okay. My right now I'm working on Chevalier, who it's about Joseph Bologna, who was the Black Mozart in the 1700s. Never had a clue. I didn't know.
Wow.
And
No.
so it's like I'm getting chills, right? Because it's a great film, and it's it's great to work on a story about us.
Yeah.
You don't always get to do that,
Yeah.
fortunately.
Yeah.
You've got other people that'll work on these ones that are
Mhm.
about us, but we don't all the time get to do it. And so I'm real excited. It's a Fox Searchlight film, and it comes out this summer. And so that's what I'm currently working on. I think, yeah. I'm sorry, I missed the other
Yeah,
question.
no worries. And now I was going to ask you one other thing, but actually, just to touch on the point you just made, do you see? Because sometimes we hear people in post may get pigeonholed to only being on one particular type of project. So it's like they don't get to do everything. Like I'll get all the BT films, I'll get this, but if I want to work on Disney, if I want to work there, I don't get the crossover because they're like, oh, Bobby only does this. And obviously you've had crossover across the board, but is there still something done or something that needs to be done there as well to like open it up so you're not just seen as like the black post professional?
Yeah, and the thing is, it's like I just work, right? And I work with
Yeah.
white people, I work with all sorts of people, right? But people are like, "Oh, you can only work on." I had a guy one time who thought I we had a conversation, and I'm like, "Well, you have me training all these people, but then you hire them, you don't hire me." And so he goes, I go, "Do you think I can only, excuse me, work on booty call movies?" And he said, "You know what? Let me get back to you." 3 days later, he got back to me and he said, "You know what? I have to apologize because in the unconsciously, that's what I thought."
Yeah.
And then we became the best of friends after that because he took the time to really look and at himself and what he really thought. The
Mm,
challenge for us is that Black people don't hire Black people because they always think that Black people don't know what they're doing, right? That's the old adage.
mhm,
White people don't hire us because they don't think we can work with white actors, right?
mm,
So we get kind of caught in the middle, which is
mhm,
unfortunate. So it's still a challenge, and it's like we just work. It doesn't matter. Like I could walk in a room with all, non white people. I hate to say that, but
yeah.
walk in and they'll smile and they go, "Oh, she's Black." Right? So you can kind of tell, you sense it in the room. And you
Mm,
have like 5 minutes, the most, to really let them know that you know what you're doing.
mm,
And after that, they're fine. But there's that still when you walk in a room, you can feel it and you have to cut through it. You have to know, you know what? Doesn't matter what you think right now. I know what I'm doing. I'm going to do good by you. It's just crazy.
yeah. My goodness. That is real. And I felt that with what you said, because I think all black people can relate. And that's one of the reasons why we're talking about this on Post in Black. We're looking forward to the film this summer. And is there a way that people can keep in touch with you? Are you on social media, LinkedIn, anything?
I am on LinkedIn. I'm not real good with my handle. I know, let me see, Bob Bobbe 7 is my Twitter.
Okay.
An ear to hear at mac.com is my email. You can
Okay.
always reach out.
Yeah.
And LinkedIn, I guess, might be the easiest one for people. They can just
Yeah.
always hit me up and friend me, and then we can go from there.
Yeah. I love that. An ear to hear. That's just giving off. That's just giving off being open. I love it. Bobby, this has been amazing. I really appreciate you joining us on a Post in Black, and we look forward to keeping in touch and just hearing more about everything you've done. So thank you again for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
No problem at all. And thank you all again for tuning in to another episode of Post in Black. Be sure to follow us on all of our social media channels at Post in Black, and make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Until next time, stay black.